on his way. Devil is on his way. Devil is on his way, motherfucker. The devil gonna make you pay. Fall to your knees. Devil is on his way. Fall to your knees. Devil gonna make you pay. Fall to your knees. Devil is on his way.
Mountain Murders is an Appalachian true crime podcast. Some content may not be suitable for all listeners. Listener discretion is advised.
We say fuck a lot. Hey, y'all. Welcome back to Mountain Murders. I'm Heather.
And I'm Dylan.
Hey, Dylan. How's it going?
Hello, Heather. How are you?
You seem very serious today. Do you have on your NPR voice? Your
yes.
NPR face?
Welcome to Fresh Breath. I'm back.
Fresh breath?
Was it fresh air?
Yes.
Welcome to Fresh Breath. This is Dylan. I'll be your host today.
Dylan Gross.
Dylan Gross, yes.
Because you are extra gross.
I also have a podcast we'll talk about later called the Creeper Podcast.
Okay, that sounds amazing. And congratulations on your stank breath.
And here in the World Cafe today, we will not raise our voices and we will not make any sudden movements.
Please don't.
See, I could do that, dude. I could be the NPR voice guy.
You could.
Yeah.
More like the AARP voice guide.
You know I qualify for AARP now?
Bitch, sign up.
I'm gonna.
I want some discounts.
There's a lot of discounts.
Some discounts.
There's a lot of support to us 45 pluses out there.
I want some discounts.
They've been sending me that shit for
Look,
years.
I have no qualms with eating off the early bird senior menu. I'll go have dinner at 4:00.
That's called smart.
See, it's actually cost saving because if you make it a late lunch / early dinner, then you only have to have the one meal.
You're thinking
Right?
like an 89-year-old
Because I skip
woman.
breakfast.
Yeah.
And then I'll just do the late lunch, early dinner.
And go to bed at 6.
Yeah, and then maybe have a snack
Yeah.
before bed.
And then get back up at 4 in the morning for no reason. And start it all over again.
That sounds like my life now.
That sounds like a pretty good life to me.
It's not too bad.
Just kind of chilling and shit.
Yeah, thanks for providing that for me.
You know how out here in the country, you get behind a retiree, you can tell. You know, you got the old man or the old woman, you can tell they're retired. And they have absolutely nowhere to be that day.
They just putt around.
They're piddling. They're
They
piddling.
piddling, and when they go somewhere, they tell you they're going to putt around.
Because what they mean by that is they're not going to go fast. They're not going to do anything out of the way. They're not going to get out of your way because they don't have any reason to do anything fast.
No,
Because they got the rest of the days open. Their
no.
schedule's
My
open.
papa, when he was around, he was not going to go over 35.
Never.
In his car.
Ever.
Okay. And he would go to the Hardee's at 6 a.m. and sit there till 10, 4 hours having coffee.
And maybe a ham biscuit.
And maybe a ham biscuit. Exactly. He was not going to get in a hurry.
No.
Ain't nothing going to break his stride.
And people get pissed and aggravated with these retirees, but that's what retirement's supposed to be. Right?
Putting around.
Putting
Piddling around.
Go piddling a little bit.
Piddling and putting.
Take like 6 hours.
Loafering.
Loafering.
You can either be loafing, or you can be loafering.
I'm going to explain that distinction right now to people. If you're loafing, you're probably going to do one task and you're going to take your time. Now, if you're a loafering, you're going to be fucking off all day. You have
Probably even maybe go out of state.
You may be a
You
loafer.
might run to the other state to pick up a lottery ticket and come back.
You may be loafering in another county. Now, if you're loafering, you're all over the place. There's no telling. And you've drove 35 miles an hour to get there.
It could be like a regional day trip when you're loafering.
All right, Heather, how are you doing today?
You know, I'm hanging in there, Dylan.
A regional road
I
trip.
am a couple of days older than the last time we spoke.
Ah, yes.
I had a birthday on Friday.
Yes, Heather, happy 50th birthday, baby. It's a big one.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
50. I'll have you know I turned 86.
I'm in my middle 40s. And honestly, every year people's like, do you feel that 45 hurts?
It does.
It's just like, because I was like, I'm 40 a minute ago, right? I'm 40, no big deal. 40, these 10 years are going to be something else. And then obviously the pandemic and everything happened. I was like, okay, I'm not sure what's going to happen. Now I'm 40, I'm north of 45. And there's just no going back. It's like I'm already 50. You know what I'm saying? It's the downhill side, bud.
I understand.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been checking the mirror and noticing all the little fine lines and crow's feet and things. And now I've become obsessed with oh my gosh, I'm looking old.
Your skincare routine is a very set, disciplined regime.
I know. And I was online all morning trying to figure out what would be the best acid
What?
to like strip off dead
my
skin
gosh.
cells for my face.
Yeah.
Because I've been using like a lactic acid. So I was like Googling to find the best, what I can get to like make my skin look younger.
I'm telling you right now, if I come home and there's some strange crate from like a wooden antiquities looking crate from like the movies, and it's like skin beetles from like Egypt or some shit, I'm not going to be okay with that. And you're like laying in a big vat with like all these beetles
Look,
picking dead skin off of you.
I would splash in a kiddie paddling pool with those little fish that eat the dead skin cells off your feet.
Yeah.
If someone told me that they would eat the dead skin cells off my face
Oh my
and
God.
make my crow's feet go away, I would be there. Okay. I would dip my face in the pool of fish. I don't even care.
Well, I got to say, I think you're beautiful and I love you.
That sounds like you need. I'm not loaning you any
No.
money.
No, it's true. Well,
Okay,
you
you
could
need to
just
do better of budgeting your money.
Well, see, I like in Heather's terms, the loaning me money is giving me the money back that I loaned her in a timely fashion. That's loaning me money.
Well, it's not really loaning me money because you just give it to me, and I have
Whoa.
no intention of paying you back.
No, this last set I told you I can give you this now, but I'm gonna need that back because that's all I got right now.
Well,
It's all I got.
That sounds like a you problem, Dylan.
Okay.
That sounds like you need to make better economic choices.
I think your crow's feet.
Maybe you
and
should
your-
run my credit report before you lend me money.
These fine lines. See, that term right there alone is something that was created by the beauty industry. Fine lines that you can barely even. They're not really there, and the one lines that you do see, they're not a bad thing. What they are is they're wisdom patches, is what I call them.
Okay.
And they're laugh lines.
Well, if there's any fantastic skincare line out there that wants to sponsor the podcast,
Yes.
Hit me up.
Please, so I don't have to
me-
hear this shit.
I'll be your guinea pig. What does
Thanks.
that even mean? I didn't even talk to you about this. You're the one that stands in the mirror primping all day.
You're the one that wants to put botulism in your face.
I do.
She does.
I do. That's why we need more patrons.
And if
'cause
we have any,
Mama's going to need some Botox.
if we have any doctors that perform Botox services and want to be
any
sponsored here,
estheticians, we have any
Wow.
dermatologists.
we can sponsor you here on Mountain
We'll do
Murders.
it in a trade.
Give my wife this product, please. Just let her try it out because she's going to talk about it. She's going to let people know how it works.
It's true.
All right, so here we are.
Okay, old timer.
I'm piddling right now.
Are you ready to get into today's case? We have to get into your Wayback Machine, Dylan.
Yep, I got her all serviced down there at the Jiffy Lube. She's ready to go. I cranked her up, and she's been warmed up for you.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
It sounds exciting.
People don't understand what dads go through when someone once decides like they're going to maybe take a trip out of town or they're going to leave early in the morning and be gone all day. There's preparation that needs to be done to make these situations viable.
Well, I've never seen you take those steps, but I've seen my own dad take those steps. So I will refer to the experience I had as a child. How's
That is character assassination at best and a damn lie at worst because she knows damn well when she leaves with me, I'm going to have worried about the car for at least 3 days. Okay.
Yeah, you never shut up talking about it.
Right.
He talks about all the maintenance that he needs to have done, but he never actually takes the vehicle in for the maintenance.
I've been doing maintenance lately.
Have you? Finally.
Are you going to leave town with a less than an absolutely full tank of gas if I'm anywhere near it on a trip? Tell the damn truth.
I don't know.
You know what kind of full tank you get from a dad? Not you don't go just until it pops off. You get that extra $1.75 in there slowly until it's literally leaking out the top of the gas. Yes.
Is this a reminder because I have a road trip coming up?
I will prep the car for
Are
you.
Are you like stressing about it? You're thinking about it?
See, this
You're
is
weighing your options?
this is your Bugs Bunny psychology shit you do to me. So I'm going to go out and drop the $90 in there to fill your car up just to prove a point.
That doesn't even sound like something I would do, Dylan.
All right, let's go. I've seen the light.
Okay. By 1832, the Industrial Revolution had swept through New England.
Oh my
The
gosh.
transition from making goods by hand to using machines saw a rise in urban populations as farmers who lived in mostly rural areas moved to the factories to take up work. New England became a textile hub supplying fabrics for the world.
That's a lot of fabric.
It's a lot of fabric, Dylan. The technology for weaving cloth on a large scale saw thousands of girls and young women joining the workforce to become known as mill girls.
What? Damn, man.
You work in a mill, Dylan. Do y'all have mill girls?
Well, some old mill girls.
Or you call them mill ladies?
We don't call them either of those because we'll end up in HR. Are you kidding me? This is 2023, bro.
Oh, I thought maybe people called you a mill girl.
Yeah, we can't be like, hey, mill wench, get over here. Yeah, you indentured worker.
I would just call you a mill boy in return.
I am a mill boy.
I know you are.
I'm a dirty little mill boy.
Still think you guys should do a men of the mill calendar before you close up shop.
I think I can find 11 other people that do it because you know I'm doing October with a small gourd.
You need a tiny pumpkin.
Yeah.
Yes. One of those little, the very, very tiny little, yeah.
The really dry ones.
How cute.
But they're all usually interesting fall colors.
The life of a mill girl offered an opportunity to earn a living wage, pursue education, and explore the world. However, not everyone was thrilled to see women and girls in the workforce. Critics pointed to the dangers of living in the city as well as the inconsistent nature of mill work. But these women wanted something more than farm life, a husband, or to become a domestic servant. Because of these criticisms, the mill operators had stringent expectations of these females. They needed to be of the highest moral standing. No shenanigans were tolerated, Dylan.
Yeah, because I can tell you that the moral fortitude of this mill is going to be on these women's shoulders, not the men, right?
Exactly.
This handful of women in the workforce. Did you see? I have to say this before I forget. They have just passed a bill to allow 14-year-olds to work up to 11 o'clock at night.
Yes.
Now, on a school night, I'm pretty sure, to help plug the labor gap shortage. There's already been reports out of, I think it was the Midwest, there was this huge sanitation company that was taking kids as young as 11, 12, 13 years old in the middle of the night to clean these slaughterhouse facilities full of knives, blades, and machines that eat people. And they would have them in there working all night, and then they'd be in school falling asleep. What the fuck's happening to this country? We're going backwards.
We are going backwards.
Okay.
Not only did the Industrial Revolution transform New England, but religious beliefs were also challenged. The Methodist movement arrived, causing a tremendous stir. Considered more progressive in their beliefs and attitudes toward issues like women's role in the church and slavery, the Methodists attracted new members, including the working poor. The church's belief was salvation was available for anyone who asked, despite your background or sins you may have committed. Also, Methodist ministers didn't need a great deal of education, but were welcomed if they had charisma.
Like I say, having like a female preacher or whatever at a Methodist church has caused quite a stir in some of the areas I've lived in my life.
Yes.
It's a big deal.
In 1775, 2% of churchgoers were Methodists. By 1850, nearly 34% of all church attendees were Methodists. So I bring this up because this history is all going to come around full circle through our story. Lucretia Leffingwell was born into an affluent New England family. Her father, Christopher Leffingwell, was a pioneer of paper manufacturing, Dylan, beginning in 1765.
Damn, he done been making them paper stacks. And I'll say her name 3 times fast. Your last name is, what's the last name?
Leffingwell.
Leffingwell?
Lucretia Leffingwell.
I think we should stick with Lucretia. I think that's really going to roll off the tongue.
His business provided paper for bullet cartridges during the American Revolution. Lucretia, who was welcomed into high society, could have lived a life of wealth and leisure. However, she fell in love with the wrong man, Dylan.
Oh my God. It happens to women so many time and again.
His name is James Cornell. He was employed by her father as a lowly mill worker.
So she's just slogging down there in the ditch with the workers, the regular folk.
I reckon she's just rolling around in the mud, Dylan. Now, against her father's wishes, the couple married on January 7th of 1796. The couple had 2 children, James Jr. and Lucretia Jr.
Okay.
During the marriage, James asked his wife to draw large sums of money from her father's holdings. But after a while, her father, who, now remember, he did not care for James, did not feel like this guy was good enough to be with his daughter, felt that Lucretia had used up enough of his fortune and cut her off financially.
Well, yeah. So in his mind, this guy's not good enough, air quotes, for his daughter. And then she's pulling out large sums of money from accounts she has access to. That's just going to solidify what he thought in the first place. He's not good enough for her. He can't take care of her. Blah, blah, blah.
He's out for the money.
Yeah, he's out. He's after her after the money. Yes.
Soon after, James dropped off his pregnant wife, Lucretia, at her father's doorstep. Supposedly, he went to Ohio and was never heard from again.
So her father might have been right?
Yeah, sounds like it. Lucretia, who had essentially been disowned by her family after marrying James, was forced to give up her 2 older children to relatives. The third child was finally born, a baby named Sarah Marie Cornell, and she would remain with an impoverished Lucretia until she was 11 years old.
Wow, so the family didn't welcome her back in with open arms after she was dumped off on the doorstep.
No.
Wow.
At age 11, Sarah went to live with her Aunt Joanna, who lived in Norwich, Connecticut. As a teenager, Sarah worked as an apprentice tailor. She spent 2 years working as a tailor in Bosraville, and by the time she was 20, Sarah and her older sister, Lucretia Jr.,
Okay.
Lucretia too, were locked in a love triangle with a tailor named Grindle Rawson.
Okay. With these names,
I know, right?
I'm just going to try to stay away from them. Sometimes I key on something. I'm sure people are like, by the end of the episode, just shut the fuck up, dude. We get it. But these names are very interesting.
Despite Sarah's affections, Rawson married Lucretia too. After this, Sarah decided to leave tailoring and found she could make more money by working in textile mills. Due to the nature of the work, she would relocate for new opportunities as needed.
Now, the 2 sisters and another gentleman were the makeup of the love triangle.
Yes.
Okay.
Sarah, who is an apprentice tailor, and from what I gather, she was working for this gentleman, Grindle Rawson, and developed feelings for him, but he had his eye on her sister.
Yeah, he wanted L2.
He wanted L squared, yes. Sarah had gained somewhat of an unsavory reputation. While living in Providence, Rhode Island, Sarah was accused of shoplifting. From there, she moved to Jewett City, Connecticut, where she worked in the weaving room of a mill until she was let go. She had been seen leaving the building late in the evening, accompanied by a young man. And this was grounds for dismissal.
Oh, really?
Yes. Sarah's reputation for entertaining men became a subject of scrutiny, and it followed her around. Though she was transient and went to work at various mills, this reputation seemed to precede her. During this time, Sarah had also converted to Methodism and several times tried to become a member of the Methodist Church. Yet Sarah's reputation stood in the way. While living in Slatersville, Rhode Island, she was reprimanded by an employer for lewd behavior. After this, Sarah returned to Lowell, Massachusetts, where she asked the new Methodist minister, whose name was Ephraim Avery, for a job as a domestic servant. Ephraim denied hiring Sarah at all, but a witness would later say she was hired to work for the family. Only a week after, Sarah was dismissed from the job because Ephraim Avery's wife did not like the attention her husband seemed to shower on the new housekeeper.
Oh, well, see, I could see you losing your job for that because nobody's going, most people aren't going to be comfortable. But all these multiple other manufacturing jobs she's lost for her low moral what an aptitude. But I've really not heard anything she's done besides like kick it with some dudes after work.
Exactly.
And just live her best
And
life.
shoplift.
Well, yeah, you shouldn't do that.
Yeah, but this is the 1800s, and she is a single young lady.
Right. I know.
So to be unchaperoned
But it's ridiculous.
around a man is sensational. It's scandalous.
And what's funny is all the men that would decry her in public or her behavior would probably be one of the first to try to hang out with her behind closed doors. You know how that works, right? It's like
I know how you operate.
It's like the Republican, or I'm sorry, I'm not going to. It's like the congressperson who's really big time against something in the public, pushing for legislation against it, whatever. And then, you go in the bathroom in Minnesota airport and you take a piss. He's giving the old footsie signal. Yeah, the one that means he wants to fuck in the stall.
Was that guy from Minnesota?
Well, I think they were in a Minnesota airport bathroom.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I
could
remember
be
when all
wrong.
that happened.
Yeah,
It was some years ago.
He want to fuck in the bathroom stall,
Ew.
And I'm not sure what that signal looks like personally, unless it's just a note taped to your foot that says, "I want to fuck in the bathroom stall." I had to say it one more time.
We could ask someone.
Okay.
Sarah then moved to Lynn, Massachusetts, where she got another job as a domestic servant. But this didn't last long, as Sarah was terminated for a suspected theft.
So it sounds like she has some kind of kleptomania, or I don't know. She can't help herself from stealing,
Possibly.
or some kind of issue there.
Maybe. After this, Sarah returned to Lowell and asked Reverend Avery if he would give her a certificate of good standing so she could join a church in another community. He granted her the certificate, but she did not leave. She stayed behind in Lowell. And instead, she got another mill job in Lowell at the Appleton Mill, where she had once worked before. Sarah was able to persuade the mill to rehire her, despite having left under bad circumstances previously. She was hired on a probationary basis. But soon again, the mill's operator heard rumors of her loose moral behavior and confronted the young woman.
I think I have loose morals.
I think so.
No, I mean, just like to the public or just in general, they're very sound, reasonable expectation. But I think I don't really act on. I don't know. I think maybe I'm just trashy a little bit. What is it? I'm just a little taste of trash.
You have some trash.
I think
You have a streak of trash.
I replaced our stove some weeks ago. Okay. Where would you think the old stove is at now? It's been recycled, processed in some center.
Well,
Where's the old
as
stove
your
at?
wife, my hope was
Where should the
that
stove
the
be?
old unit
Uh-huh.
would have been taken to the landfill.
Wherever you get rid of old appliances.
Yes.
Properly disposed of.
Yes.
Where is it at, Heather?
It's sitting in my driveway
Okay.
for like several weeks.
Right. I'm going to take it off as soon as I work off.
He has said this for 3 weeks.
And I did have a pickup, my buddy's pickup during a week.
You could put it in the back of your
in my
SUV.
car. Yeah, I know. I could actually set it beside the road because we're in town. They'd pick it up.
Yes, they would.
I think that's trashy.
All you need is a toilet in the front yard that you plant some marigolds in.
And the old couch from inside on the front porch
Yes.
that stays just enough out of the rain that people sit on it.
I mean, I'm
It's a
okay with the
Porch couch.
porch couch.
A porch
I
couch
mean,
is
where else
awesome.
are you going to drink your 40s?
Okay.
Right?
Yeah. So, okay, we've determined it. Dylan's a little bit trashy. It's not my morals.
You're a little trashy.
Okay.
I'm a little trashy too, but in other ways, like I will drag a bitch out of her car and whoop her ass in the
Yeah.
street.
So you're like bougie trashy.
So
You'll beat a bitch. But you like order curtain sets. You know what I'm saying?
yeah, I'm not a big fan of Dylan like hanging his bath towel over a window and pretending it's a curtain.
Well, everybody know I knew it was still a towel. I didn't imagine that it transformed when I hung it on the old.
You know, when I first
Curtain.
started dating Dylan, I remember going to his house and he had like a towel hanging over a window in his bedroom to block out the daylight where he could sleep.
Yeah.
And that was the moment I kind of figured that I think this guy's a little trashy and I like it.
So you like your fencers just a little bit on the trashy
I
side.
mean, look, I grew up trashy, right? We always had curtains, but
Yeah.
we was inching along that. We was riding that fine line of trash, Dylan.
It's okay.
So, but yeah, I appreciate that you've evolved a little bit to like now you are willing to buy blinds and curtains.
Well, I'll let you do it.
But I appreciate
I'll finance.
that you bought me a new oven. I just wish that you would take the old one away
Yeah.
because it does look pretty skanky.
It's trashy.
Yeah.
I mean, it really is
It's
no
so
way
skanky.
around it. Yeah, we're right here in town, right beside, I hope I've not turned off any tourists. They're probably like, look, that's mountain folk right there. They got the driveway stove. and then they'll come around the house and see if we have a porch couch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We haven't gotten that one yet.
All right.
Okay. Are you ready to finish with the story?
Yeah, I think my morals will allow it.
My little trashy, loose moral friend.
Yeah, I'm loose.
Yes. Oh, you're very
Just
loose.
flopping in the
You're
wind.
like a big old elastic waistband.
Jesus, that's blown
A
out.
big gaping waistband of loose elastic done.
It's seen better days.
Sarah admitted that she had had an affair with a reputable clerk who worked in the counting house. Hoping they would marry, Sarah confessed the rumors were true. She had been seen in a tavern with the man on multiple occasions.
Jesus.
However, she pleaded the relationship had soured. Sarah told the overseer she was a reformed woman, and the overseer agreed to allow Sarah to keep working at the mill as long as she went to the Reverend Avery and gave a full confession of her sins. Can you imagine your employer telling you, like, I'll keep you around, Dylan, but you have to go confess your sins first?
Well, for one, you're in my personal business, which is totally inappropriate. And two, now you're like tying my my continued employment to whether or not I share your religious beliefs.
Whether you getting that dick or not in the bathroom.
Yeah, well, hey, I'm not going to say anything. If she wanted that triple C, that thick in the bathroom, really, I'm not going to admonish that.
Well, if she wanted to go to the tavern
Yeah,
with a man,
right.
what's wrong with that?
There's nothing wrong with that. And I think she deserves it after a hard day in the mill.
Sarah wrote several letters to Reverend Avery, giving full confessions to her relationships with multiple men. Instead of offering sympathy, Avery began a process of holding a church trial against Sarah. The confessions would be held against her, and it was likely the woman would be expelled from the church for fornication.
Okay. At least they don't apply a double standard to everything. What the fuck, dude? This is ridiculous.
By September of 1830, the church expelled her, and Sarah lost her job at the mill once again. Sarah then fled to New Hampshire, seeking work first in Dover, then in Somersworth. She couldn't gain admission to the Methodist Church in either community, however, because of word from Ephraim Avery. He had put out the word.
So she gets blackballed like regionally.
She a hoe, don't hire her, and don't let her in church. I thought the goal was to save souls. So if you see a sinner,
Yeah.
you shouldn't you be trying to like lead them on the righteous path?
This is backwards.
This seems very yes.
Everybody-
This seems very discombobulated from what I thought was supposed to take place.
Yeah, I agree. Everybody at the church is already perfect when they start and they never make any mistakes. I'm like, bro, why you even need church? Right?
Right. So meanwhile, in Lowell, Massachusetts, a doctor named William Graves asked the Reverend Avery if he knew Sarah's whereabouts. According to the doctor, Sarah had skipped out on a medical bill where he had been treating her for gonorrhea. When the minister from the Dover church reached out to Reverend Avery to ask about Sarah, whether she should be allowed membership to the church, was she in good standing, the Reverend Avery told him she was guilty of fornication, theft, lying, and that she had a social disease.
And later it came out that she was guilty of Californication.
Californication? Yeah, it's true.
Oh my God.
Well, with the gonorrhea and the obvious sexual relations, it does not surprise me that she had been with David Duchovny.
And then it became known that she actually breathes involuntarily.
Yes.
I mean, my God. Damn it, Sarah.
I
So
love when back in the day when they called it a social disease,
the gonorrhea.
any venereal disease.
Oh yeah, and I'm not going to even make a stupid, gross venereal VD disease joke because like everybody, there was a lot of VD going around, right?
There's a lot of STDs going around.
It's coming
today.
back.
There's a lot of it today.
I mean, can for a second we just talk about how they don't even mention VD or any of that to kids? These kids think that like everything has a cure and shit.
Well, we grew up at a time when all we heard about were HIV and AIDS.
Yes, and all
we saw
yeah.
people dying, and horrific deaths, and It was all over the news, and it was really drilled, I think, into our generation, like practice safe sex and condoms.
We watched the movie Philadelphia.
We did, yeah.
It was sad.
We listened to Bruce Springsteen's
Yeah.
award-winning song.
And then that little kid that got it from the blood transfusions, bro.
What was his name?
Ryan, wasn't it?
Ryan White, right?
Yes.
Yes. There was like that made-for-TV
We were
movie.
scared of AIDS.
We were.
People literally thought you could get it like in the bathrooms in like public and shit.
Yeah. Yes, but it does seem that there is a generation
Mm-hmm.
that doesn't quite grasp the severity of
VDs.
sexually transmitted diseases.
Yes.
And it's wild, Dylan. I've been reading recently news articles about how syphilis is making a comeback, a
Yeah.
disease that, for the most part, seemed to be under control and almost like eradicated. I mean, you rarely hear of people with syphilis these days.
No, it's like some shit you heard like scurvy when you're
Like
talking
Al
about
Capone
pirates
or
and shit.
something,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's something that you know it could happen, but it basically doesn't happen anywhere in the world for the most part. And these kids, and I say these kids, I just mean I sound like an old codger. I
Well,
know.
you are an old codger.
Well, I am 45. I mean, what can I do? And I do have a porch I sit on, and I sit and look. I don't know what to say beside the stove. But these kids, they don't think that oral sex is intimate. They think that oral sex is like second base or some shit.
Or anal.
Or anal. Yeah, no
I'm
kidding.
still a virgin because I had anal sex. And you're like, what?
Yeah, and I'm just like, I would argue that both of those things are almost more intimate. Or at the very
yeah.
at the very least, I've certainly put my penis places I would not put my face. I mean, right? You've done the same, I'm sure. Threw that little thing around and some old, I don't know, swap meet or some shit, But yeah.
This is how you talk about your wife. This is how you speak about. Remember the other day we had a conversation about how you're disrespectful to me? This is how you're disrespectful to me, Dylan. I for the record, okay, I have not thrown that thing around at a fucking swap meet.
Are you
I've never even been to a swap meet.
really?
I don't even know what you mean by a swap meet. Like,
Yeah.
what are we swap meeting? Like car parts?
Anything happens at the swap meet.
Yeah, I ain't going to no swap meets.
You
Okay.
can go down there and trade for things if that's what you're into, because they're down there throwing it around. I mean, you really do have these people with loose moral
This
character.
sounds like some trash you've done. Okay.
Ah.
Quit projecting, throwing that thing of yours around at me because I've never even been to a swap meet.
Well, look, swap meets is just a flea market on the West Coast. Calm down, okay? You've been to a fucking swap meet and you just don't know it, okay? I think that's what it is, babe. So anyway, kids, be careful. Wrap it up.
Never take candy from a stranger unless it's wrapped.
Don't go chasing waterfalls and shit. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
TLC
Stick
told
to the
us.
rivers and the streams that you're used to.
It's true because you're going to know their course and action next. I mean, that makes sense. You know where they empty out at. You know what I'm saying?
It's true.
You've
I
identified.
know I've already decontaminated you. I've
You've,
sprayed you down. I've hosed you with some like flea remover, Dylan. So
You've identified the tributaries that emptied out into the delta near the sea. See, these are hydration terms, people.
can we get back to our story?
Yeah, let's
Now
go.
that you have
I'm
sufficiently sidetracked us
Sorry.
with your bullshit. I'll have you know I throw this thing around on the U.S. military, Dylan. There's a difference, okay? Because
God.
those other things was in uniform when I threw this thing around.
Oh my God,
okay?
it was a government-funded thing.
Yeah,
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, it was. Now, according to the doctor, Sarah had skipped out on this medical bill, right? So he was trying to track her down. When the minister from the Dover church reached out to Avery to ask about Sarah, Avery informed him that Sarah was guilty of fornication. As I mentioned, she has this social disease. She's a liar. She's a thief. And in his letter, he stated, quote, "Now, if you want her in your church, you may have her."
God, it's not really a glowing review of her, is it?
No. Sarah sent several letters to Reverend Avery asking for forgiveness, but got no response. Finally, Sarah returned to Lowell to confront Avery in person. She asked him to sign a certificate of forgiveness so she might join a church in New Hampshire. Avery agreed to sign it, but then turned around behind her back and wrote a letter to the minister in New Hampshire revoking his forgiveness.
Wait, did he lie to her?
Yes.
What the
So Reverend Avery's kind of a piece of shit.
He's a big old POS, dude. I like how these, You know, like letters and certificates and things used to carry a lot more weight. Like if you had something that was, professionally penned and on, certain paper and all, you could pull out and it would be proof to people.
Right. Like Dylan, when he met my dad, presented a certificate that said he was bona fide.
Yeah.
And that's when my dad was like, okay, you can marry her.
Right.
Because
And
her last husband was not bona fide. But you are, sir.
it's true. And he was impressed with my PhD, my degree from the School of Hard Knocks. Because Joe can appreciate that.
I don't think so.
Well, I know that me have been working in a paper mill for 12 years has gave him a boner.
Because you're blue collar.
Blue collar as it gets.
Yeah.
Okay.
If you were white collar, he would have been like, you're not bona fide.
No.
I need a man who works with his hands.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
he got one. He just got one. Son-in-law, I just go with my hands.
Yeah, I think you two should make out. Now, Sarah left New Hampshire soon after, and she stopped off in Massachusetts, then went to Woodstock, Connecticut to stay with her sister Lucretia. Although Sarah stayed active in attending classes at the Methodist Church, she seemed to put her hopes for membership on pause. It was very important to Sarah to become a church member.
Well, I'm just waiting for some church or some pastor or some group, church group, to be like, look, she cares. She's trying harder to be a member than like most of the people in this church. So let's do what we can to uplift her, brothers and
A
sisters.
few years ago, my cousin married his longtime girlfriend.
This is a funny
Now,
story.
they live together. They have kids together. Been together for a long-ass time.
They were living in the devil's house.
They got married so they could become members at this Baptist church that my cousin was at the time very obsessed with. Like, he needed to become a church member because his brother that he's like in competition with, kind of
Right.
like this, secretive competition against each other. Although his brother doesn't seem to acknowledge it. Like, I think his brother doesn't care, but my cousin's like always in competition with his brother.
His brother just lives his
secretly.
life.
Exactly. While my
It's just
cousin's trying to
normal.
compete with
Yeah.
him. It's a funny dynamic. Because my cousin, his brother had become a church member because he's married and whatever. Then his younger brother was like, I'm going to become a church member.
Of this church.
Yes,
Okay.
because he can't outdo me. And the preacher was like, look, bro, I would love for you to be a member of the church. We've enjoyed having you here, but I can't allow you membership. You're not married. So my cousin proposed to his longtime girlfriend and had this speedy, rushed wedding like a month later just so they could become members of the church.
Yeah, they want to be members before the summer cookout started.
It's true,
Okay.
which I think is kind of fun. I'm like, just to say
Well,
I'm a
look,
member.
listen. There's literally probably 9 to 12 churches within a half mile of us right now, right where we're sitting. So everywhere he turns, there's another church,
Oh, yeah, there's one right there.
another
and one-
Baptist church.
We have two by our house.
So the
that
fact
are
that
in
you would
walking distance.
care what this one preacher tells you need to do.
Well, I think most preachers
Well,
are probably going to tell you something like
Well,
that.
I don't. I mean, they could be like, it would be
Unless you're
better.
at like a Unitarian church or something.
We would prefer if you do that. You know what I mean? Well, I guess I've never went for full membership of the church, so maybe I'm just not aware of how exactly those
Look,
dynamics.
those Baptists don't play around
They don't play around,
with sex and marriage.
and it's like the Methodists or like to hardcore old school Baptists. The Methodists is just living on the edge of moral.
Don't even get them started on Presbyterians.
And it don't even bring up the title of
You
a
want to hear
Unitarian
about
church.
some fire and brimstone? You bring up the Unitarian church to
Oh, my
an
God.
old school Southern Baptist
And
fiery donkey preacher.
if people don't know, the Unitarian Church is basically non-denominational, and it's a spirit. It's more about spirituality, is what I've gathered from it. You can just come and fellowship together with the devil, according to the Baptist preacher.
So Sarah is hoping eventually she's going to get membership, but in the meantime, she's taking advantage of the classes and things she can get from the church. Your Sunday school, the study groups, what have you.
I feel sorry for her, honestly, that she has to try this hard to be a member of any church. I mean, she's gone all over the place trying to do this. And people are actively spreading letters and blackballing her. It's just very strange.
Maybe she ought to have thought about that before she let that thing out at the swap meet.
I bet a few of them done caught that thing and they don't want nobody to know.
Others agreed that Sarah was openly critical of Reverend Avery ruining her reputation. She and Lucretia were finally able to put their past issues behind them because if you remember, they were both vying for the love and affection of the man who had become Lucretia's husband, right? So they finally are able to put that behind them. And with the help of Lucretia and her new brother-in-law, Sarah seemed to be able to reestablish herself in Connecticut. She took a position working as a tailor in her brother-in-law's shop and from all accounts was thriving. She was making good money. She was popular. She was getting a lot of business. She was a very talented, skilled tailor.
Oh, nice.
In August, Sarah attended a Methodist summer camp meeting where hundreds of people camped out in tents and attended 4 days of revival-type prayer and services. The meetings were a crucial part of expansion of the Methodist Church. Reserved New Englanders, like Sarah's brother-in-law Grendel Rawson, thought the camp meetings were ridiculous. They were over the top, they were filled with religious fervor, and people were kind of raucous with prayer and worship, singing, jumping around,
Hey, you want a damn good
being
Wednesday?
filled with the Spirit kind of thing. And, so some of these more reserved types were like, this is a spectacle.
You go on down to a tent revival on a Wednesday night at the nice Baptist church and see if you don't get the Holy Spirit all up inside of you, too.
Some Pentecostals.
You're damn right.
Look, Sarah liked this kind of worship. Like, even though her brother-in-law thought it was absurd,
So it's up her alley.
spectacle, she liked it. She thought it was great, and she felt very moved when she was participating in this kind of thing. She was also very pleased to once again be allowed to attend the camp meeting. It was like the Coachella or the Bonnaroo of its day. You have to think about these people. I mean, they had very limited social lives outside of work, right? So going to this big camp meeting where you have Methodists from all over, multi-state region descending upon this camp, and there's music and dancing and worship and praise and education happening. This was like a big social event.
Yeah.
This was like you put on your best dress and posed in front of the Ferris wheel so you could hashtag it Coachella on Instagram.
Well, it's like that Field of the Woods out there in Bryson City.
It's in Murphy, honey.
In Murphy? Yeah.
Murphy,
that was a
North
big
Carolina.
deal.
Yes.
That was a big deal for people to go there and hang out, and they would have revivals and things like that.
Yes.
So I could see that there's more to it as far as than just the religious element. You got the social element. You got
you're being
fun.
seen.
It's
you're
entertaining.
Mingling.
Yeah.
You're kind of, if you're there and you're seen, it's a big deal.
It's like a big swap meet.
I'm sure it is, Dylan.
And I bet her things wore out, bro.
Look, you're the only one here who's been swapping your meat.
Mm-mm.
Okay.
It's still the same meat.
Ephraim Avery attended the camp meeting at Thompson, Connecticut as well. For clergy, the camp meetings offered fellowship with other ministers, and because ministers relocated so often, the meetings provided a welcome chance to socialize with parishioners from past assignments. So at this time, with the kind of I don't even know what we would call it, this renewed interest or this movement to become Methodist and spread the word.
I think that's the exact words I'd
The
use.
Methodist Church was not placing these religious figures in a church for very long. They typically would have like a 2-year shelf life and then would be moved to another location. This way they couldn't get involved in local politics.
Oh, okay.
Or gain a reputation for being, this leaning this way or that way.
I know exactly why they're doing this.
And to become like super ingrained part of the community, they keep shuffling them around.
They want the pure message of the Methodist Church to be the only thing being pushed. And they don't want local politics, local relationships, or any of that shit getting in the way of their message.
I think
So
that's a great way
They
to
want a
say it.
fresh message, and they want that to be the main thing talked about.
Yes.
Okay.
I think that's a great way to sum it up.
See, sometimes my brain makes sense.
Now, Reverend Avery was not preaching at this meeting, but he looked forward to it for that reason, because he wanted to kind of hang out with his old friends.
So the preachers are going to get to see each other. They're as excited as the parishioners, or if that's how you say it, to see all their friends, all the people you've known and met and spent 2 years here, 2 years there. So they're all pumped up about the socializing too.
Yes, by August of 1832, Ephraim Avery had been reassigned from Lowell. His new parish was in Bristol, Rhode Island, an oceanfront community connected to Portsmouth and Newport by ferry. Avery inherited an active flock of more than 200 in the long-established Methodist community. Sarah saw Avery along with other Methodist ministers that she had known back in Lowell. By the fall, Sarah became aware that she was pregnant.
Yeah.
Sarah confided in Lucretia what had happened at the camp meeting. Sarah, now this is her claim, Dylan, approached Reverend Avery at the meeting, asking him to destroy the letters that she had written. Avery agreed, but there would be a price for burning the letters. Sarah would have sex with him. At first, Sarah turned him down, but as he persisted, she relented, having sex with him in the woods near the tavern where he was staying. Sarah's sister corroborated that she had been, quote, unwell as females are 8 days before the camp meeting, confirming that the conception likely happened there.
So there's almost proof she just went through her cycle. Yeah, okay. So all this fight and talk about the morals of this, this poor woman, and this greasy shit right here is what he's going to do: extort her with sex, for sex. That's so fucking in the name of God. This is a man that claims to be godly. That's so fucking disgusting to me.
Amen.
It truly is.
Can I get an amen?
Amen from the pew.
Don't shout the man down.
From the pew in the back row.
Rawson and his attorney encouraged Sarah to move to Rhode Island, where she could sue Avery for support. Sarah moved to Fall River on the Rhode Island border, not far from Bristol, where she knew she could get mill work. Sarah stayed in Fall River until December 20th. It seemed that Sarah had two goals. She wanted to keep the child and also preserve the reputation of Reverend Avery. In Fall River, Sarah did reach out to Avery by letter explaining that she was pregnant. In his response, Avery suggested she find a place to have an abortion or go into hiding, have the baby, and give it up for adoption. But Sarah wouldn't agree to either suggestion. The correspondence seemed to end with both parties kind of agreeing like they would wait a little while longer to make sure that Sarah was actually pregnant. And once they had full confirmation, they would make a decision. They would come to some sort of decision together.
Right.
So let's just wait it out. It gives us time to think, weigh our options. On October 8th, Sarah went to a doctor to confirm the pregnancy. Over the course of the next few visits, Sarah confided in the doctor that the Reverend Ephraim Avery was the child's father. The doctor was appalled that a man of the church had done this, but encouraged Sarah to seek financial compensation and support from him. In late November, Sarah and Avery exchanged several more letters regarding the pregnancy. Finally, the pair agreed that they would meet on the evening of December 20th. The following morning, which was December 21st of 1832, the body of a young pregnant woman was found hanging at Tiverton, Rhode Island, on a farm by a man named John Durfee. She was hanging from a cord tied to the roof of a haystack on his farm. Durfee sent for a coroner. When news reached Fall River, a few local ministers and the mill overseers came to the scene to see if they could help identify the victim. Reverend Ira Bidwell recognized the girl. She was identified as Sarah Marie Cornell, a mill worker from Fall River, and also an attendant of his congregation.
Okay, so he knew her.
Yes.
Okay.
The overseer at the mill in Fall River, whose name was John Smith, agreed she was the woman who worked in the weaving room. Thomas Wilbur, who acted as Sarah's doctor, was also called to confirm the identity of the victim and told the others that he knew for a fact she was pregnant. Dr. Wilbur speculated the woman had taken her own life out of desperation. He explained that Sarah had confessed the father of her unborn child was a married Methodist minister named Ephraim Avery. The coroner's jury agreed with Dr. Wilbur's assessment that Sarah Cornell had been pregnant. They also declared her death a suicide. She was buried the following day, which was a Saturday. Yet on Sunday, new evidence surfaced. In Sarah's bandbox, a pencil-written note was found that read, quote, "If I should be missing, inquire of the Reverend Mr. Avery of Bristol. He will know where I am." And it was dated December 20th and signed S.M. Cornell.
Yes, you damn right, girl. I'm glad she wrote that down.
Another letter was found among Sarah's possessions, and it was an anonymous letter, Dylan, requesting a meeting on December 20th. When the coroner's jury took a closer look at the cord, it didn't indicate suicide. While the loop was so tight it could not be cut off without cutting into Sarah's skin, it was tied with a clove hitch, a knot that would not automatically pull that tight. The decision was made to exhume Sarah's body.
So it was actually a knot that was almost like someone had to pull on it from both ends to pull tighter. It just wasn't right, I guess. I don't know my knots.
Well, yeah, a clove hitch is not a knot that's a
It's
knot.
not like a slip
It's
knot.
not going to tighten up like that.
And stay tight.
No.
Right.
The body was examined more closely, and this time bruises were found on Sarah's abdomen, suggesting that a possible abortion attempt had been made. On Sunday, after the examination, the coroner declared that Sarah had been murdered, and an arrest warrant was issued for the Reverend Avery.
Wow.
Salacious, huh? Like, this is quite a story.
Man, I bet the tongues were wagging in this community.
Due to misconceptions about the Methodist Church and its association with Freemasonry, which I'm not going to go into, many New Englanders were looking for a reason to protest the church. Some of those people immediately took up Sarah's cause. They had a working class girl who was murdered by a Methodist minister, and they began seeking any evidence they could use against the man and against the church. Vigilantes from Fall River initially ferried over to Bristol to try to pull Avery from his home so that he could be taken to Massachusetts for justice. The Bristol sheriff, backed by local Methodists, stood against them and blocked their way until they left. The anger stayed at boiling points for months. The Reverend Avery fled to Rindge, New Ohio. He said later it was at the urging of his lawyers. Outraged public officials called on the governor to put a bounty on the minister for his return, and eventually a band of vigilantes tracked him down to New Hampshire and, quote, accompanied him back to Rhode Island.
Yeah. So
they formed a posse, and
yeah.
they basically went and snatched him.
They done went and got him.
They snatched his ass.
So, it's funny because minus the attempts and the want to make the Methodists look bad, basically, by so many people in these areas, would they be this adamant about justice and catching him if it was just on Sarah's behalf? Do you believe so?
Well, yeah, I think back in the day.
Do you think so?
Yeah, you've got this single young woman, pregnant, possibly murdered. I think folks would be up in arms about that.
Well, I'm glad, because sometimes you've told stories like this, it's like nobody freaking cares, about the poor woman or something like that. But and I guess that just might have dialed it down just a notch. You wouldn't have maybe so many public figures and things against it because it's a bigger deal because with the Methodist angle involved.
By now, the minister had grown a beard and was wearing green-tinted spectacles. So even though he was trying to act like, well, my lawyer told me to do this, it was pretty clear that he was on the run.
Well, my lawyer told me to do this, and he told me to get this disguise going.
Yes.
And no one's going to remember the guy with the mountain man beard and the green glasses. Nobody's going to remember that. He told me to keep a low profile. So I dress in canary yellow all the time, and I ride a two-headed donkey. So I'm just trying to stay out of the way.
So now you're the man in the yellow hat?
Yeah.
I'm very confused. Okay.
I think he was touching George. Is that who you're talking about?
Yeah.
That poor fucking
You
monkey.
think he was touching the monkey?
I never, even as a small child, never trusted the man in the yellow hat because he sneered in some of the drawing and some of the frames, he seemed to sneer and be creepy. And I was like, where the fuck did he get George from anyway? This is a great sidebar. This is really how it works here about murders. Now we're talking about Curious George, the books. Where did he get them?
Wasn't the man in the yellow hat like a zookeeper?
Oh, yeah, that's a likely story, sir. And why can't we know his name?
I'm not sure.
Huh?
Those looking for evidence dug into the Reverend Avery's past, uncovering details of minor disputes that he had had earlier in his career as a preacher. But most important of all, the statements that Sarah's doctors gave at the inquest, which implicated Ephraim Avery, were made widely available. This included details about Avery pressing Sarah to take oil of tansy, a potentially lethal drug, to induce an abortion. In the court of public opinion, the man was guilty.
Yeah, it's not sounding good for him.
Ephraim Avery's trial began on May 6th of 1833 in Newport, Rhode Island. It lasted 27 days. Sarah's words to her sister and doctor regarding the paternity of her unborn child were not permitted during the hearings. Both sides presented testimony regarding medical opinions on suicide versus murder, the exact age of the fetus, with both sides supporting their own view. Avery's defense provided witnesses who accounted for nearly every moment of his schedule at the camp meeting, noting there was rarely a time when he was not among a group of people. The defense attacked Sarah's moral character and sanity. Sarah was accused of having an affair with her brother-in-law, as well as extorting money from a Connecticut man by claiming that she had been pregnant before. Yet the circumstantial evidence against the minister was strong. The defense claimed that not only had Sarah Cornell committed suicide, but, Dylan, she had gone to great lengths to plant evidence against Reverend Avery herself.
Wow.
As like a revenge. She wanted to get back at him.
Everybody's out to get him.
Avery's alibi for December 20th was weak. He was not home on this date, but insisted he had taken the ferry to Portsmouth, but found it had stopped running and was delayed making it back home that night. So he had to stay over in Portsmouth. But the Methodist Church found people willing to testify that they had seen him on throughout the day at various times. So either the Methodists were lying, or it made the case that he had killed Sarah weak. So this case was garbage.
So people was like, oh, I seen him around town all day. Like he wasn't gone all day.
Right. So it looked like he had not been near this crime scene at all.
Okay.
Some saw this as proof the Methodists were an evil cabal who would go to great lengths to conspire, lie, and protect their own. But in the end, Dylan, the jury could not find enough evidence to convict the Reverend Avery in Sarah's murder. The letters in Sarah's trunk were unsigned, anonymous, and her reputation for dishonesty, along with the testimony from witnesses that she had threatened to kill herself before, were pretty harmful to the case. Also, the fact that her doctor was not allowed to testify to her pregnancy or any of the confidential information she had told him, it was not allowed in court. So that also damaged the case. So Ephraim Avery was able to return to Bristol, where reportedly his wife was shocked at his acquittal. Like, even his wife thought he was guilty.
Well, yeah, and I'm sure he's going around, see, I told you guys I didn't do it. But then I think other people are kind of like, bruh, you got lucky. I can't believe they didn't find you guilty.
Yeah.
Because we're pretty sure you did it.
His wife was surprised that he was acquitted.
So he got away.
She really thought he was guilty.
He got away with murder.
Well, it didn't last long staying in Bristol, because by June 5th, Avery had made his way to Boston. The church had paid Reverend Avery's legal bills, which eventually ran into the thousands. And while urging Avery to tell the truth, church officials clearly didn't want a scandal. In meeting with his superior at the start of the case, Avery reported the man told him, quote, "If you have disclosures to make, I do not ask that you make them to me or to any of your brethren in the ministry. It would be too much for such to witness against you, which must be done, but to some other person."
Nice. So if you're guilty, don't tell me.
Don't tell me.
So I can have, plausible deniability.
Yeah. But he admonished Avery not to cover things up, saying, quote, "I must warn you not to add sin to sin, Don't do so on your peril. In some ways, it would have been better for the church had Avery been convicted. But now they owed this man loyalty, despite the fact that they didn't really want him among their ranks now. So the Methodists, they don't want him anymore, now that his reputation is sullied.
No, because they were fighting for the reputation of the Methodist Church. They
Yes.
could really, honestly, likely care less about him or her, I'll be honest, as far as the organization goes.
Right.
The upper ranks.
Reverend Avery was summoned to Boston for a Methodist church trial. After a review of the evidence, the church also exonerated him of the murder charge. He returned to Bristol to preach, but by now his congregation was divided. Many opposed his place there. He was burned in effigy twice in Bristol and at
Whoa.
least 4 times in Fall River.
Hey, that's a lot of effigy burnings.
It is. You know, I wish somebody would burn me in effigy.
You know,
That would be like the coolest thing ever.
I would take it as a compliment
Please burn me.
that you have
At a stake?
affected this person to the
Yeah.
point that they build basically a lookalike straw doll of you, hoist it into the air, and set it ablaze. And everyone knows that it's supposed to be you that's burning.
Gosh, I hope so.
Huh,
You know,
isn't that
instead of leaving
sweet?
a 1-star review, I hope the next person who feels compelled
Burns
to do
you in
that
effigy.
will just burn me in effigy and then like send us a picture of it.
Okay, you heard that first here, folks, at the Mountain Murder Studio. Heather wants to be burned in effigy.
Yes.
Let's be clear about that part.
Yes.
And please send us the video because she's not kidding. That would tickle her to fucking death.
That would be awesome. After 1834, the Reverend Avery never again was stationed in a New England church. So his career was done.
So he was a creep. So, I mean, at least he's not getting to be in a position of power in the church anymore. Because let's be honest, he did some other creepy shit.
By 1837, Avery was completely vanished, if you will, from the church's roster. The Reverend, or former Reverend Avery, moved his family to Lorain County, Ohio, where he became a farmer. And according to records, he died in 1869. Sarah Cornell's death would remain one of the most notorious cases in Fall River until 59 years later when the murder of Andrew and Abby Borden occurred.
Oh, no way.
Yeah. I should also mention that Sarah is buried in the same cemetery, which I think is called Oak. Shit, I can't remember now. It's Oakwood or something cemetery is exactly where Lizzie Borden's buried.
Wow.
So you can go visit both graves if you're ever in Fall River,
Nice.
if I recall from my notes.
Nice. That's so Stephanie's up that way.
So yeah, that's the case, Dylan, and it begs the question: what really happened to Sarah Cornell? Was she murdered, or was this a woman who had the wits to plan her death and frame this guy for it to get back at him?
Wow. Now, if she's that that conniving and devious, I mean, she is a woman, so you have to consider. I'm kidding. Women are sweet.
So
I'm
you're
glad you
saying
have
that she's far superior because she's a woman, and that her intellect far, exceeds anything a man could come up with. So
Yeah, well, yeah.
So she could, yeah, exactly.
Well, yeah, she gone girl,
So
bitch.
She's smart, yeah.
She gone girl. You know what I'm saying?
I'm not insulted by that.
Like who can plan that shit out? A woman. Only a woman. So that's it. Okay, so
Well, I'm sorry that you're not detail oriented.
I have details. They just never. They're not in a cohesive.
They don't know how to orientate themselves.
They're they're unoriented.
Yes.
There's a lot of information, but it's just not been. I need AI. I need somebody to help me. So either he killed her because we know he's a piece of shit because he fucked her in the woods. It distorted vagina.
So you're
from her.
saying that if you get fucked in the woods, that makes you a piece of shit?
No.
Is that a David Allen Coe song? Fucking in the woods.
Fuck, dude. I'm sorry. My damn wedding ring was hurting me just now. Are you doing like some damn fire starter shit to me?
Maybe.
No, not just fucking in the woods. You know the story.
Fucking in the woods.
He extorted her.
Oh, okay.
Okay, that was gross. And then gets her pregnant. From that one, it extorted ish time. Then he kills her because we've seen that story 1,000 times. Or is she this conniving mastermind who could actually create, who intends to kill herself because she's sad and, you know, despairing, and but creates this on the way out to get him and frame him for her murder. Now, what do you believe? Do you think there's any chance that it's the second?
I think it is far more likely that he killed her.
Yes, I agree.
Because he had a lot to lose.
Yeah, there you go. And he tried. He did. Oh, you know, you should get an abortion. Which back then, abortion is like taking a chance of being killed, right? For sure. Like the mother not surviving either, or you know, go live with friends or relatives for a year and then give your baby away. That was the options he was giving her. Those aren't great options, right? She already has multiple other children. Or no, I'm sorry, Sarah is multiple sibling. But I think he killed her.
You do?
I don't think there's any chance that it's some kind of crazy scheme on her part, devious scheme to frame him on her way out, and she just commits suicide. You're not going to believe this shit. You're not going to believe this. You want to know how the fucking man in the yellow hat got George?
Hit us with your best shot, Dylan.
Your mouth's agape, and it's about to be wider. He kidnaps George in Africa, using his straw hat as a trap. George gets curious and tries on the hat, which falls over his eyes. At this moment, the man in the yellow hat captures him and takes him aboard a ship bound for America. What the fuck? That's not okay, bro. It's like it doesn't sound good, right?
No.
That's not
so
okay.
You're saying we could like break this down? Is it like George represents a child because he's curious and whatever, right? Even though they make him a monkey. It's almost like this guy child trafficked George.
Yeah, or he represents the millions of slaves brought to the Americas too from Africa on a ship.
He monkey trafficked
Yes,
George.
This is not okay.
And then gave him the name George, trying to Americanize him.
Yeah. Probably wouldn't let him do none of his ookie bookie jungle moves no more.
What's that mean?
That's the man in the yellow hat's a racist pedophile. I think this is what this has brought to light.
You think so?
Yeah, fuck yeah, dude.
He's not letting George just be a monkey in a tree.
And just letting him be curious. All that curious shit was George trying to escape. Go back and reread the books with that in mind. George trying to get up out of that bitch.
Okay.
He's trying to run next door to the friendly black man who's going to be flabbergasted that George is in his arms crying. That's the woman who escaped the guy and ran next door to that black dude. He's like, I was out back. I was just making some ribs. And then I seen this white lady and I knew it was trouble.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
You don't remember when that guy had them two women like captured in that house for a long time? Trapped in that house.
Are you talking about that?
And then she breaks
Ariel
out. Yeah.
Castro?
Yeah.
Was it in Cleveland?
And then she breaks out, and it's like the old black dude's next door, like grilling, and she runs to him for help, of course. And his description, if you have never seen it, go back, please, everyone, go watch it now. His description of what happened, and you know, before he called police and stuff, is hilarious because he's like, I just wanted to make sure everybody knew I didn't have anything to do with this white lady. He didn't want to get caught up in that bullshit, and I don't blame him, bro, right? Because our system's so fucked sometimes. It's very funny.
Yes, Dylan.
What else can I think about?
I have no idea, but this has been the mystery of Sarah Cornell. And so everybody can hear the story and then decide, you know, for themselves whether she took her own life or was murdered.
I think she was murdered.
I think she was murdered.
I mean, it's the most likely outcome.
If you have any case suggestions or would just like to drop us a line, you can do that at mountainmurderspodcast@gmail.com. We do appreciate those emails, Dylan. We've gotten quite a few from some folks in the last couple weeks. They've been awesome. We heard from Olivia, who had listened to an older episode about the Lady of the Dunes.
Yeah.
And she was writing to ask if we knew that they had finally uncovered the identity. We are aware, so that's a really interesting case. I'm so glad they've been able to go in and find that lady's identity.
I was kind of shocked when they found her identity, honestly.
Yeah, we got a really awesome email from Melody. Big fan of the show.
I'm a big fan of Melody.
So we appreciate that.
So
and of
there's
course, we've heard from Deborah, and that was awesome.
I wonder if Melody be down there at the swap meet.
Oh, Dylan, stop.
See, this is what happens
You
when
stop.
you email Mountain Murders. You become part of the show, and this is all in jest. Melody, I'm sure you're fine to be down there at swap meet doing any damn
Look,
thing you
nobody
want.
wants to swap meat with you, Dylan. Nobody.
That's funny.
Nobody wants to swap meats with you.
Oh, just imagine if there was a program where you could swap meads, and you could go try out different meads. Wouldn't that be weird?
Yeah, I think it's just called like a potluck. I think it's called a potluck. Dylan.
That's what I was thinking just now in my
Sure.
head. A potluck. Yes, let's share casserole recipes.
Okay, I'm going to turn him off.
I'm sorry,
I'm
baby.
going to try to restart him because I think he's broken. We'll be back on Wednesday with a midweek.
And- Yeah, and I will be back with her, and I cannot wait. And you know what we got to do, baby? We got to do a listener stories episode because I can't wait any longer. I got to listen. I want to hear them.
Yeah, we got a couple good ones in the bag.
Now, I'm going to go outside right quick before I go to work, and I'm going to fuck with the neighbors. I'm going to pretend I'm making eggs on the stove in the driveway with my granddaughter's little plastic play kitchen set.
You should.
I'm doing it right
Okay.
now.
Okay, bye.